Bryan Fischer here for D1 Ticker and Collegiate Sports Connect. Thrilled to be at the 2025 NCAA Convention here in Nashville, joined by USF AD Michael Kelly. Michael, thank you so much for stopping by. Busy times for you. You're on council. You got a whole bunch of stuff going on. What's it like being at convention right now?
It's been a great week. Obviously historic with some of the actions taken with women's basketball yesterday, and a lot of discussion about the future of college sports, which is something we're all grappling with and taking advantage of ways to modernize and continue to adjust with the never-ending changes.
Yeah, well, never-ending for sure. But you mentioned that women's basketball vote. Exciting times for a lot of folks who have invested in the sport. What was your kind of reaction just to kind of being in that room and seeing it pass unanimously?
Well, I thought President Baker and others did a really nice job of kind of making people aware of the historic nature of it, because it was something that was in line for the last couple of years through the hard work of many, and to kind of hit that. But yesterday was the official time when it actually pushed all the way through. So it felt good, and I'm proud of the NCAA and proud of the membership for pushing it through. At USF, women's basketball has been a big deal to us. We've continued to invest in it. Have been fortunate enough to make the tournament, I think, 8 out of the last 12 years, and so for us to now have a chance for that program to earn some units in the future, if we continue to have success, would be is very much appreciated. So we're glad to see that.
Well, and special for you, especially given that the first tournament you can earn those units is Final Four is in Tampa.
Isn't that special? Yeah. We're proud to serve as a host institution for this year's Final Four, working with Lynn Holtzman and her team. I think we'll be the host that's hosted the most as it relates to women's Final Four. We're proud to do it. Downtown Tampa gets better and better as a host, and we as the host institution are proud to do it. And with our women's basketball legacy and support that we have in the Tampa Bay area, it only makes sense that we can welcome the world here in April.
I mean, you guys are almost old hat at hosting things. I mean, you had volleyball there recently. I mean, certainly the CFP title game was there a couple of years ago.
That's right.
What is it like for you, especially working with your local committees to host a lot of those events?
I think we're so fortunate. Our Tampa Bay Sports Commission, led by Rob Higgins and Claire Lessinger, are amongst the very best. I think selfishly know it firsthand from being a resident there now, but even in my past, as from an objective standpoint, being the COO of the College Football Playoff, working with the ACC on events we brought to town, I've always felt that Tampa Bay does an amazing job, and really led by that leadership of the Sports Commission. So to be the host institution that gets to bring any of those college events to town, like the Final Four for volleyball, like the Final Four now for women's basketball, for preliminary rounds for men's basketball, and the like. And now that we're building a new stadium that I'm sure we'll talk about, we hope to be able to bring other events, whether it be lacrosse, soccer, other things, to our new 35,000 seat stadium as well. So a lot of things, but we're proud to be a part of Team Tampa Bay and think that the Sports Commission does a phenomenal job. Okay,
well, you bring up the stadium project. You got shovels going now. I mean, everything has progressed. Kind of update everybody in terms of where you guys are at, and ultimately kind of your timeline and how excited you are to actually have that get going.
Man, we're so excited. I mean, so many things happening and changing in college sports in general, and that's a lot to keep up of, but to be also add on the opportunity to build a brand new stadium, brand new operations building, kind of going hand in hand at the same time. So it's a $340 million project. We've got it all worked out. In November, we had our official groundbreaking, and now we're kind of getting through some final things with the GNP and other things as it relates to the construction company, and we expect to moving real dirt and setting up compounds here in the next couple of weeks. It'll run over the next 2 years, and that we expect in the summer of 27 we'll move into the operations building component of it, and then it'll allow us also to then start the state. Our first football game will be there in September of 27. So it all comes together really well. That'll also lead into, everybody wins on that from USF standpoint. It's an engagement tool for the university. It's a great way to continue to add to Team Tampa Bay when we host other events, as I mentioned before. And then even from the operations facility, even if football becomes a prominent player in there, so lacrosse and football will play in the stadium. That opens up space in our Selman Center to add to the other sports that are, as everything continues to grow, they need more space. So we're doing everything we can to make this stadium project part of our philosophy of being a model athletic department for modern times, and making sure we can not only adjust the times with these investments, but to plan for the future. And the stadium will be a crown jewel for USF and for Tampa Bay.
As you've gone through this process, what's maybe surprised you in terms of going through this that you maybe didn't expect?
Well, just how much interest there is. Every time we put up the slightest rendering, you get excitement from, certainly I expected it from our fan base and from our alums, but to see the excitement in the Tampa Bay area, and to see really the excitement throughout the college sports community, throughout the nation and the sports industry as a whole, I think they just see a modernized, right-sized stadium for us will be really, really cool. It'll be by USF, for USF, have all the modern amenities of all the kind of premium product that you want. Going through the process of planning the design of the operations component has been exciting but eye-opening. It's been great and been able to benefit from so many others that have been building them in the last 10, 20 years. Our staff and myself have been able to go around, and when you kind of see what everybody has, what the modern athlete needs, whether that's related to nutrition, to recovery, to just amenities that you want to have a first-class building, it's amazing to see how much that's changed since when I was earlier in my career to do it. So it's been exciting to kind of see those things come, because again, we're all trying to figure out how to best make efficient use of our athletes' time, give them everything they need to be successful holistically. And man, the uniqueness of what goes into recovery and the nutrition spaces and the training tables and everything that goes with it is great. And for us to have a chance to, like, I'll say, a somewhat last bite at the apple compared to others, and really try to take the best of the best and try to make it. In our case, we won't be the biggest and have all the bells and whistles that maybe everyone would have, but I dare say it will be amongst the most efficient ones and have everything that we've seen that's out there. We'll have it, and it'll be there for our USF student athletes.
I mean, has it allowed you to almost get closer and understand your football coach even better in terms of what they want and what they are trying to do in that building as well?
Oh, yeah, it's been very healthy for he and I to kind of go through that. It's been great for other support units that support football and support all the sports, kind of say, okay, cool, this is what we need recovery-wise, this is what we need nutrition-wise, this is what we need rest-wise, this is what we need from a meeting room standpoint, all the details that can go into that. Rather than retrofitting things like we have in our little bit older Selman Center, now be able to have that very modernized, and then take those same elements that are going into the new place, use that to kind of adjust the Selman Center to modernize that, and then every sport will have everything that we're kind of foreseeing for football.
What was it like with that the Crazy Bowl trip that you guys had? Obviously, a long ways away, crazy game. What's been the season like for you on the football front?
Yeah, the season was up and down because we were very proud to have our second straight winning season, second straight bowl victory. In fact, there's only, I think, 15 teams in the country that have won bowl games or CFP games last year and this year, so we're glad about that progress, but obviously wanted to be another step toward our desire to win our first conference championship and to continue to compete for the coveted CFP slot. It was so great to see that continued progress. We were unfortunate to have our quarterback get hurt and miss a good more than half the year. We had 2 hurricanes that hit us in the beginning of the year that were disruptive for sure, and certainly priority has to be on the safety and the adjustments that we make, not only for our 115 players, but also for all the staffs and all the support staff that support that. So we were proud of how we handled it, but it certainly was time-consuming and challenging. So to kind of come through all that and still be able to achieve that goal of a second straight bowl-winning season, we're very proud of it and excited for the future. And we have recruiting classes that put us right at the top of the American for the second year in a row, and so we're very proud about that too. So we think all things are pointing up, and now with the ops building and the stadium to point to as a proof of our progress, proof of putting money where our mouth is a really great indicator.
Well, from football and your new house that you're going to be moving into soon there on the football stadium side, to the house settlement. I know you're on council. That's probably one of your biggest topics of conversation around here. How are you thinking about that and thinking about how it supports a lot of your programs there at USF?
Yeah, as I thought President Baker did a nice job in his various addresses here. It's something that the membership had to figure out a solution for. Finding the settlement kind of puts at least some sort of guardrails around the overall settlement, allows everyone at least some knowledge to move forward. There's still a lot of details to be worked out, but it's allowed us to kind of look back and look at the positives. Yes, there's some negatives related to our share of what we'll have to owe in terms of PAC pay and penalties and that, so we have to adjust in that realm. But the permissiveness of what comes up, particularly I'd say as it relates to the scholarships that can now go to some sports that were probably underfunded with scholarships that we can now fund permissively. And so all told, so be able to still find ways to allow for our primary revenue producing sports to not only get the scholarships they probably always had, but also to be able to figure out what extra things they can provide in NIL and revenue share opportunities. And then the opportunity comes really, I also see, for the comprehensive excellence we can provide with our Olympic sports. Now we can get to what I think are more appropriate scholarship numbers allow them to be more competitive in our conference and move that forward. So I think all told, we'll have in excess of 100 new scholarships that will come into our athletic department, which I think is even higher than many P4s will do. It's just kind of more proof in the pudding of our desire to be, again, a model athletic department for modern times, and one that we're being very aggressive in terms of trying to invest everything we can in our student athletes. And while it's a little bit unsettling with everything that's changing, we look at it at USF as something you have to look at as an opportunity. Yeah, we have to adjust. We can't do everything, but whatever we can find a little avenue in the new era of permissiveness to do and reach that level, that's what we're going to do. And we're appreciative of the support of our donors, appreciative of the support of our university administration and board of trustees to see that, want that, and continue to help support us to be the very best we can be.
When it comes to those decisions and those conversations that you're having with your head coaches, I know there's still obviously a lot of uncertainty out there, but what are you kind of telling them? What are those conversations like in terms of here, what might be what your number is, or here's might be what the percentage is, here's what the roster caps are? What are those conversations like?
Yeah, well, we've been very transparent and upfront. I think that's the only way to do it now. Things are changing. You can't sugarcoat things, you can't hide things, but we, again, in the era where we're trying to be very aggressive in supporting them in their strategic endeavors, to sit down with Olympic sport coaches that were probably a little scared, hey, are you going to potentially cut sports, cut us back? And we're trying to say, hey, not only we're trying to find status quo, but to even provide more scholarship opportunities, to figure out how does that maybe allow you to reprioritize how the budget you have is spent, because we're doing everything we can to make you as successful as possible. Yeah. But then to also be transparent is that whatever revenue pot we're able to create to share in a similar proportionality to what we think will be the best practice standard amongst all, certainly all P2 or P4 institutions. We want to mirror that and find that. So we're just telling them the reality of that. And so, but at the same token, by putting our neck out a little bit earlier, telling our coaches this fall what we think they have to work with on a scholarship standpoint, major increases in sports like volleyball and lacrosse and baseball and softball. They're elated and know that this can be a real opportunity of a new era of permissive, new era of opportunity to try to surge forward. So. But it goes hand in hand with that. There's only so many resources that can happen, and that might cause decisions in priority. But if this is the way of the future in terms of providing the scholarship opportunities, providing the revenue share opportunities, providing the training things that we already alluded to that we're trying to hit, again, it's all about modernization, and it's a whole different world in these last 5 years than it was prior to that, and you have to adjust, and we feel confident that we are.
Well, a different world for your athletic department too. I mean, you've added some new sports as well. Walk us through adding beach volleyball and women's lacrosse, and what that is kind of reflected not only in terms of your department, but like what have you learned through that process?
It's been exciting. It's been exciting to learn cultures of two new sports like women's lacrosse, like beach volleyball, and kind of getting a feel for why we think we'll be really successful there. We've hired two outstanding coaches. Mindy McCord from women's lacrosse came to us from Jacksonville, where she started that program, got them to a Sweet 16 level in lacrosse, and for us to recruit her and attract her to come to do it again with a place with even probably more resources, and now with the promise of playing in the new stadium and all these other things, it's going to have a chance to be really elite from the mindset. And what we've seen is that's been, for USF, fitting in with the mission of the whole university, bringing where a lot of, it's growing as an emerging sport a lot in scholastically in Florida, so we're able to attract a lot of young women from Florida. But again, to the Mid-Atlantic, to the Northeast, the hotbeds of lacrosse are very interested in this. We've had really good recruiting success because they're like, hey, the brand new program in Florida, D1, AAU institution, this is a place that we want to be. So that's been fun to kind of learn that. We play our first game on February 7th, so we're excited about that. And then we're kind of in a year in residence now. Our first student athletes for beach just arrived back in August, and now they're kind of playing exhibitions and things all this year. And then next year we'll start our first year of competitive volleyball. Coach Pre, she was ran one of the biggest clubs in the Tampa Bay area throughout the whole state of Florida, in fact, and was a very accomplished pro player, and was a great player in Brazil as well. So all this kind of comes full circle to really show not only are we just trying to add it, because we are very genuine about the opportunities we can provide for women's sports, but we want to be very successful and to attract those two caliber coaches and to put in the resources we are with their facilities is setting a good standard for them.
I mean, how much was it? Did you kind of want to be strategic on it, but also looking around and walking around Tampa Bay and seeing those beaches and saying, hey, there's a lot of kids in this area that are playing beach volleyball or
beach
lacrosse?
volleyball is a big deal, and lacrosse, you're right. So I just felt certainly lacrosse, just because it was emerging so much and growing so much in the state of Florida, also the way it can attract, like I said, folks from the Mid-Atlantic and from the Northeast, me being from Maryland originally, I had a big passion for the sport of lacrosse anyway, so it all kind of came full circle. And then when we came to evaluate another sport with beach volleyball, it's interesting to see. Again, it's very on brand for us, right? We're amongst the beaches, we're amongst great weather all the time in Tampa Bay, so we think it's only natural that we would have beach volleyball. And I'm excited to see you learn here at conventions when you see things like stunt and other things that are happening there. Learning more about the future of women's flag football would be something that would be very attractive to us. So you just keep learning and see what might be opportunities down the line. But that flag football is something that really kind of sparks my interest, knowing how that's growing a lot in the state of Florida. And what could that maybe mean? It seems to be something we could be very successful in as well.
Well, I mean, I believe the State High School Association is doing a lot of stuff on the women's flag football. How much, what are you trying to learn, and ultimately kind of what is your decision timeline? Is it parallel with the NCAA?
And when I mentioned that just kind of sparked my interest now because it's so early in the process. We obviously have just gone through, I remember being at this convention a couple of years ago and we were really even making the decision on lacrosse and beach. So it's probably still many years down the road, but it starts with kind of learning, seeing really how relevant as it is to students that might come to your school. Right. And for young women in the state of Florida that seem to be playing it more and more at the scholastic level. The NFL is supporting it at a lot with different tournaments, some of which are even held on our campus and at different times. I'm just intrigued by it and want to keep an eye on it.
From there's no easy transition to this, but I did want to ask you, you got the phone call a couple of months back in terms of that nobody wants to receive about your men's basketball coach and tragically passing away. If you can kind of go back and what was that moment like for you and ultimately for the department?
It was devastating. I mean, not only from just a person you consider a friend, but a coach that was at his really hitting his stride, right? Someone that had a great track record as an assistant coach, has now been a head coach for 5 years, built the Kennesaw program to an NCAA caliber program in terms of making the tournament, and then same thing with us to have in his very first year, for us to have our most successful year ever, to winning the American Athletic Conference, to going into the second round of the NIT and other things was very, very gratifying. And just the way he connected, it was beyond basketball. That's what's really so powerful. To know that we're only blessed with him for 1 year on our campus, and the impact he made on not just the basketball program, every student athlete kind of knew him. He was the kind that showed up at every game, supported all different departments, got the student body involved. Right. Yeah. We had record crowds of students because of him, and it really impacted the whole university as a whole, the Tampa Bay community as well. But I guess also just a note of appreciation and thanks to the college sports industry. As it has become more commercialized, maybe more cutthroat in some ways, it was still extremely helpful and gratifying to see so many people outreach all the way from the tops of the NCAA organization to every conference to ESPN and other networks, coaches all across the country in terms of the NABC. It's just it just shows the impact that Amir had, and it was tragic, and the fact that it came so suddenly and impacted us all is something we're all kind of still grappling with, but we try to do it in a way that we can just celebrate him. We named the student section after him. We're building some sort of a statue surrounding him. We've been able to find ways to honor him and his family and keep them as part of our family moving forward. Just so much that we want to do everything we can to keep his legacy alive. And then the American Athletic Conference did an amazing thing to permanently recognize a sportsmanship award for an American Athletic Conference basketball player in his honor, but then also give him an honorary Coach of the Year for this upcoming year. And they took the money he would have earned from us and put that into his family's foundation, the Futures Foundation in Atlanta, that will continue to help support the things that the Abdur Rahim family has done. So our thoughts and love continue to go out to the Abdur Rahim family, but the appreciation to everyone for thinking about him and looking out for him is very much appreciated.
I mean, how difficult was it having a lot of those conversations with the student athletes in particular? And how did you try to at least turn things forward and try to move on? Because you guys still had games to play.
Yeah, it was a lot, but you start with humanity first, right? You gotta support the family and by family I mean not only his personal family but his basketball family. Yeah. And when you get that call and 45 minutes later you're in the meeting room in the gym consoling some stunned and some shocked young men, that's where you started. How do you start with them? How do you make them right? How do you then put your love into the family, make sure they're getting there? But then it's, again, as I said, then it was also a week or two coming off of a major hurricane that hit the Tampa Bay area. Everyone kind of becomes exhausted after that. But when you just know how good of a person Amir was, how good of a coach he was, the legacy he left. You get refilled to try to make sure you continue to honor him, and I'm grateful to the university for doing that. I'm grateful for the family for allowing us to do that,
Right.
and we'll keep moving on. I'll be honest, I within minutes of it happened, I did reach out to a mentor of mine and Ron Wellman, who I worked for at Wake Forest earlier in my career when he was AD, and he had a similar unfortunate tragedy when Coach Prosser had passed away.
Yep.
And it was nice to be able to reach out to him, not to tell me to do anything, but when I was dealing in the matter with my team and my staff, just whatever he could remember about it, what putting right things first, and what were some of the things he remembered from that horrific time in his career. So it was tough. It was really tough, but don't wish it on anyone.
Right.
But our young men are doing well, and we really appreciate the outreach.
Well, you mentioned earlier dealing with the hurricane. I mean, everybody remembers a lot of those images, certainly of Tampa. Like, what was that like, and how important was it for you just to make sure there was communication with your staff and making sure everything was okay with them and the athletes?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've gotten too much practice on it lately because last year we had a couple where we've had to just disperse, but the two this year were much, much bigger. And so to have almost back-to-back weeks where we kind of had to campus shut down, students are kind of being spread throughout, it just became challenge, but I really give credit to our staff. We have a nice system in place now, our kind of hurricane action team that kind of puts into place not only the right communication trees with the students, the coaches. We kind of know where everybody is at any given time, giving them the right ability to adjust. We've got it down to a science, but we were able to be smart and kind of figure out where should some people, if they're going to play on the road, how can we get them out early ahead of the storm? Those that don't have any competition at all, how can we get them home safely? For those that were in the midst of competition like volleyball was,
Right.
They were able to go out early to Wichita and spend the whole week, and Wichita State was very helpful. And then in the case of our football team, we had within a 48-hour period in conjunction with the conference and Memphis, we had to totally move a game because our stadium wasn't able to hold it 2 days after a major hurricane. We were able to work with the good folks at Florida Citrus Sports and the city of Orlando to get the game hosted there, but that was an awful lot to get accomplished just to even pull off a game. And but again, it was just to see our Pinellas County along our coast in particular got hit really, really hard. People are still grappling with that. What I probably wasn't as prepared for, it was one thing to get ready for how to deal with it as it was coming and when it happened. The aftermath of it in terms of the coming back was something that we anticipated, but was still more because we didn't have power on campus for another 4 or 5 days after that. So it's one thing to get the folks out, but when you're trying to get them back in, it's like, well, don't come back because the water's not here and not there. So how do you readjust a plan for that? So that's something we'll be better at if we ever have to deal with it again in terms of the return plan to be even as good as the dealing with it plan was.
Does going through things like that, does that inform your work when you are in counseling? You're just discussing things like the football playing season, and in terms of how that impacts. Well, that might have an impact, especially on schools in the state of Florida. Are you thinking about how those things all connect, especially as you are here at the convention and dealing with broader issues?
Yeah, I think it does. I think life experience of all sorts, and I think it's obviously not just me and the University of South Florida, but everyone has different tragedies and different challenges that they deal with all the time that have to be contemplated. A lot of games have been hurt in the winter here for winter weather, and it's a similar concept there, and different things happen. So yeah, I think every experience, what does happen with the good communication that exists with platforms like yours and others is that it shares a lot of best practices or real life experiences with the whole industry, so that even if you haven't yet gone through it, you've probably gone through something else that we can learn from, and vice versa. So just as I mentioned, me reaching out to someone like Ron Wellman, then again, when there's a hurricane, well, you can. I remember I did talk to like Troy Dannon, who dealt with a lot with that when he was at Tulane, and so again, that's where it's still really helpful to be in the collegiality that still exists in this industry. There's a lot of cutthroat, there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of changing, but I still love the way that people still put first things first, have the student athlete experience in mind, have a healthy athletic department in mind, and how can we all deal with each other and help each other through challenges and tragedies that'll always happen well beyond the governance and structure of the NCAA. Right.
Well, as you kind of think in the future and moving forward, certainly getting past the House Summit, kind of going into the summer, going into that 25-26 season, How excited are you? How optimistic are you about kind of the state of college athletics and USF's place in it?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. Change is inevitable.
Right.
This is something that's I agree that the settlement is probably the best situation of what could have potentially happened, and we all have to adjust to it to make it for what student athlete benefits can now be derived, but yet also still kind of try to find a way to keep the right levels of ability to challenge for championships. That's what's so important to me, is how can we still kind of make sure the championships are still vibrant, the student athlete experiences are vibrant, and continue to kind of keep that big picture in mind, because I don't want any restructuring even amongst the strongest brands and the biggest resource schools, and they deserve what they get. I understand that, but I don't want it to ruin opportunities for college athletes. That's why when I talked earlier about our plan with the House settlement to add more than 100 scholarships into the fold, yeah, we're still going to take care of football and basketball because they're the revenue producers, but how do we stay comprehensively excellent, or strive to be more excellent by continuing to invest in those opportunities? And as I know people have said many times on this platform, besides the GI Bill, it's really athletic scholarships have been such a national treasure to provide people and families oftentimes the first time someone's ever gone to college in a certain family. And I don't want that to be dissipated I want to enhance the revenue of the revenue producing sports, but I sure hope we find ways through this council that we can continue, and through this whole organization, to continue to provide opportunities and the widespread opportunity that college sports suggests. And I don't sense I sense that everybody does feel that way. In my role on the SOC, the new Sports Oversight Committee, that's our call to order, right? It's how do we continue to make the student athlete experience great, and how do we, for all sports, and how do we continue to just have great championships, because college sports championships are very, very special and memory makers for fans, administrators, and obviously the student athletes alike.
Well, that is a great note to end it on. Michael Kelly, thank you so much for stopping by and joining us here at the 2025 NCAA Convention.